back to Stylish Naija YouTube channel. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers. Thank you all for subscribing to Stylish Naija YouTube channel. Thank you for your love and for your support. If you are new to the channel, you're highly and very welcome. And if you have not subscribed, please, I would appreciate if you would hit on the subscribe button and then hit on the bell on the side also to get an update whenever I upload a new video. That's the essence of that bell. Just click the bell. So once I load a new video, you will be among the first people that will see it. And then, okay, guys. So in today's class, we're going to be learning how to cut a panel gown so you can see it with no joining. I've had this request for a very long time now, so I did something similar before, but this one has a yoke. The one I have on my channel does not have a yoke, but this has a yoke, so that's what we're going to learn how to cut today. So I'll show you how we're going to learn how to cut and stitch it. Okay, so if you want to register for our online classes, you can see my number scrolling through the screen. Just send me a message on WhatsApp and then I'll give you the details of the classes that we have available. These classes are very detailed classes with little or no supervision. Once you get these videos, you will be able to show everything that was done in the class. And okay, so you can also follow me on all of my social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, all at Stylish Naija. Now, guys, let's get started. So these are the measurements that we're going to be using for this. Okay, guys, so these are the measurements that we're going to be making use of. The shoulder measurement, excuse me, is 13.5, and then our bust is 34. So you divide 34 into 4, you are going to have 8.5. The under bust is 30, you divide it into 4, we'll have 7.5. Why we are dividing into 4 for the sake of beginners is because our fabric is usually folded into 4. That's the front piece is folded into 2 and then the back piece is folded into 2. So you have to divide your measurement into 4. Okay, so our hip is 40, you divide into 4, we have 10, and then the waist is 32, you divide into 4, we have 8. So these are all of the measurements. So now I have some lines already on my pattern. I'm going to explain them to you. We'll mark those points on the lines. Okay, so these are the lines that we have in our pattern. The first line is the shoulder line, and then this next line is our bust line, and the bust points line, you can see it is 11 inches, and then the under bust is 14. This is the under bust, and then our half cut is 19, and then we have our hip. So for you to get your hip, you are going to drop from your the half cut, just measure 10 inches. So that's for our hip line, and then we have our full gown length is 40 inches. So these are the measurements. So the next thing we're going to do now, we're going to draft a basic gown. So that's just like a very easy way of cutting this panel gown. And then now we're going to start imputing all of this measurement like I explained to you. So when you divide 13, excuse me, you divide 13.5 for the shoulder, you divide it into 2, you place your measurement here, and then I'm going to add just 1 inch to it for allowance. That will be for the stitching allowance. So from this point, I'll just come down by 1 inch like this to create a shoulder slope. So I'll just slope it into the neckline area like this. The next thing we're going to measure now, we're going to mark our armhole. So from this point now, I'm going to use 8 inches. The armhole is 16. Divide it into 2. You have 8 inches. So I'm going to mark it like this to this point like this. And then I'll create a curve like that on it. So the next thing we're going to do now, we're going to start imputing our dart. Since it is a bust here, you are going to use your bust span, which is nipple to nipple. So the bust span is 8.5 inches. So I'm going to mark it across all of my lines to the down point. And then I'll connect it with a straight ruler like this. So after connecting it straight like this, we're going to make it as a princess dart. If you notice, it is a princess dart. I'm going to come to this point now, measure my armhole. I'll take the half of the armhole, and then from this point it is a very simple process. I'm just going to create a beautiful curve like this to join this line. You can decide to come up. So when you want to make your curve, you come up. So you measure 1 inch up from the line and then another 1 inch down. Why are we doing this? It's for us to enable us curve out our bust curve properly. So we're just going to stop there. And then we measure on the under bust part. I'm going to use 2.5 inches. I want the cups to come out nicely. So that is why I'm using 2.5. So that 1 inch that we came down from, you're just going to connect it like this and then connect it. So you see, this helps you define a beautiful curve. So you can see the breast curve, it's already there. So we are almost done with that. We'll come to the waist part, and then for the waist part, I'm not going to use 2.5, I'm going to use 2 inches because I want it to have a very beautiful tight shape. So I'll just come like this. I'll mark it. So that 2 inches, I'm going to take it to the hem of the dress. So you can see that I beautifully defined my curves. So on the shoulder part, we're not going to leave it that way, or if not, when you stitch, it's going to get truncated. We're going to add 2 inches to our pattern. So you just mark 2 inches there. So once you mark the 2 inches, you are going to extend this line, this curved line like this, and then you create out a new beautiful armhole on that point like that. So this will help to stop any shortage. So after stitching, you will trim your arm, you trim your shoulder, it will fit. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is to add our whole measurement. So we add the hip measurement, divide into the bust measurement, divide into 4, just like we explained. You mark it here, and then remember the 2.5 inches we took out. You are going to bring it back into your pattern, and then you are going to add your stitching allowance. So for the stitching allowance, I'm adding about 3.5 inches, and then from this point I'm just going to make a line here, and then we'll come back now. Okay. Okay, so sorry guys. So after marking out my lines, the camera actually I did not capture this part properly. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll explain it again. So we're going to take our full body measurement. So to take the full body measurement, the first measurement we're going to add now is our bust line. So for the bust line is 8.5, like I explained. So you mark your 8.5 here, and then I'll add my stitching allowance. So for your stitching allowance, you can add how many inches of allowance you want. So I'll go ahead, I'll mark it to that point, and then the next line is our under bust, which is 7.5. You come to this point like this, and then you mark your 7.5 here, and then remember this 2.5 that we took out, you bring that 2.5 back into your pattern, and then you add your stitching allowance. So the stitching the allowance I'm adding, I'm using for 4 inches. You can use 3 inches, depends on what you want. You can use 2, you can even use 1. Yeah, I don't always like to get into any problems when stitching, so that is why I do that. The next thing now, we're going to mark on the waistline. The waist measurement is 8 inches, just from our explanation. You add it here, and then you mark, you remember the 2 inches, you bring it back into your pattern, and then you add your stitching allowance on that part. So from there, you are going to mark it like this, and then the next one is our hip, which is 40. You divide into, we have 10 into 4, and then you add your stitching allowance also. So from this, you just make a fine curve line so you can see. And then for the hem, you just take what we have here, reduce it. You can reduce this however you want to. So I will just reduce it to about 2 inches, and then from this point I will make a very fine curve here like this, so you can see our basic gown is ready. So the next thing we're going to do now, we cut out the yoke because it has a yoke. So this, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cut it out. I'll use this to cut out the back pattern. I'll show you how to do that right now. So I just need the body frame, so I'll cut it into 2. I'll use one for the back, one for the front. Okay, guys, so I have the back piece now. I've separated them. The next thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to mark out my yoke. So this is the back piece. You see the body frame. So I'm going to mark out my yoke. So the yoke is like a sweetheart yoke. So it depends on how deep you want it to be. So I'm going to go with about 9 inches. So this is 9 inches here. So from this 9 inches, I'm just going to do this like this. It is a very simple process. You see it that we are done. But for the back one, so I'm just going to make it straight. So it depends on how many inches you want to use for your back yoke. You are just going to cut the back yoke out. So we're using the same 9 inches for the back. So you cut it out straight. So that's for the back yoke. So now we're going to work with the front pattern in creating out the panels. This is beautiful, so you can see what we've got. The next thing now, we're going to cut this out. You cut along your dart lines. So we're going to fold our fabric right now and start creating out the panels for it. So this panel, you can, depends on, even if it is 12 pieces, you can use it. This is what we'll use for you. I'll use the lace for the yoke. I don't want to use the same fabric. Okay, so I'll fold out, clear off my table now and then arrange it. Okay guys, so I'll take my center piece like this and then I will place it. So now we're going to create out our dress, our panel. So it depends on where you want your curve to be. If you notice, the original piece, the curve is from the under bust, and this is the under bust line. So this is where we're going to create out our flap from. If you want it to be on the waist, you can actually do that. Okay. So now I'm going to place my tape like this. Depends on how many inches you want, how wide you want your panel to be. That is what you are going to use to do this. So for this, I'm going to use about 14 or 15 inches because I want it to curve out nicely. So I'm going to use 14 inches. So from this point, I'm just going to create a flare, a very sharp flare from here like this. Just place it and then bring it to my 14 inches. And then I'll create a very beautiful flare to that point. So after creating it to that point, it's going to stay like this. And then for the down part, I would advise for you to add extra inches to the length. Why? So it will take in any excess, any shortage when you stitch. So I added about 3 inches to the length. So now we're going to cut out the center front. And then when we get to this part, I don't want it to be straight. So I'm just going to use 1.5 inches, just curve it in nicely like this. So you see what we have. So you can see the beautiful piece that we have here for our center front. So we're going to use it. You see it's looking like what we have on the picture already. We'll use this now. I'll keep it on the side and then we'll cut out the, I'll keep it and then we'll cut out the side panel. Okay guys, so we're going to do the side piece. So for the side piece is going to flare on two sides. So that is what actually gives it fullness. There are some that you can decide to just do on one side. So for the side piece now, what we're going to do, I'm going to come to this point like this. I'll mark 8 inches. And then on this other side, initially we used 14 inches for that one. So on this other side, I'm going to use about, just repeat the 14 inches on that side also. So now the 14 inches I'm measuring from here. You can decide to measure it from here. Depends on how wide you actually want your dress to be. So just your flare, you can create it however you want to create it. So it does not actually have any standard measurement. So from this point, I'm just going to take my tape like this and then I'm create that nice flare. and then repeat the same thing on the back panel. So I'll cut it out right now. Okay, guys, so you can see what I have now. So I have my front piece. So this whole process, the way I did the front, that's what the same way you are going to do the back. Cut them out the panel. So I have my yoke, and then I'll show you now. This is what I'm going to go and do on my machine. I'll go and join the side so you can see how beautiful it is looking. I'll just join it like this. I will start from the top and then I'll stitch it to the down. So you see what I was talking about. Because of that extra allowance that we added, you can see this part is a little bit truncated, but you don't have problem because you added at least an extra 3 inches allowance to it. So I'll stitch the side and then I'll show you how to connect the yoke on it. So for this, if you want to have that standing effect, the original picture, it was actually done with a scuba. You can add, depends on the fabric you are using. If it does not have structure, you can add stay to it, any part, any stay of your choice, to just give it that firmness. Okay, so now this is the yoke. I'm going to add the neckline before we connect it. So for the neckline now, if you notice, it is like a canoe neckline. I'm going to use about 3.5 inches wide. You can use 4 inches, and then the depth of the neckline is about 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to mark it like this, and then I'll cut this out. So in connecting this now, so I have my fabric, I finished stitching it. So to connect it, what you are going to do, you take the center point and then you match it to the center point of your neckline here like this, and then you stitch. You just go ahead like this and then stitch it so you can see how it entered perfectly well, and then repeat the same process on this side. So I'll go ahead, I'll do that, and then I'll place this on the mannequin for you to see. So okay, guys, so at the end of the day, you can see how my panel gown looks like. So it does not have that full standing effect because if you notice, the fabric I use is a little bit, is a soft fabric. So if you want to have that same effect, all you have to do is use a thicker fabric and then just follow the same method and you will get and achieve the result. So thank you so much. If you find this video helpful, please hit on the like button. God bless and see you in the next one.